So, how often do I bring up Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance? Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I'm gonna go play some more Revengeance now. Raiden's custom cyborg body from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Yeah, it should be obvious by now that I freaking love this game. So why not talk about one of the best aspects of the game? The boss fights. Why top 12? Because that's all the game's bosses. So, spoilers. Well, why even waste time? Let's just get started.
That's all I needed to hear.
No. Sure, it doesn't reappear frequently, but it's basically another enemy, so I don't really count this as a boss. It's only on here because the game apparently thought this deserved a health bar. Ever had that moment where you find yourself treading familiar territory only without the spirit and charm that made it so great and memorable? Yeah, that's what the body doubles before Sundowner and R04 are in this game. Taking two great bosses and removing the moments that help make them amazing and leaves the annoying parts. But to explain would spoil the list. At least Mistral's body double leaves some healing items from her tripod since you fight Monsoon's double right after. How can rules of nature be applied to something that doesn't completely work with it? Okay, but I meant the other boss the song played for, the Metal Gear Grad, the end boss of R02. It's challenging to be sure, but it lacks the spectacle of even the earlier fights, since the most epic thing in this fight is leaping over it and slicing it to pieces, something you did in the Hammerhead fights. It also doesn't help that almost as soon as you begin the next chapter, you fight two of these things as basic enemies, completely ruining the value of this fight since you basically repeat it over the course of the next few chapters. Since Blade Wolf's DLC focused on stealth, the one time where you have no choice but to fight head-on is rather annoying. Being the least noteworthy member of the Winds of Destruction, Kanzen's fight is basically blocking an unnecessarily large axe hammer thing, dodging it, and getting in some sneak attacks every now and then, providing the only instance of it in the entire game's bosses, so there's something. You do also get to slice the mech's arms off and rip Kanzen out of the damn thing. The look on his face is just priceless. He even gets points for using the previously unused track, Hot Wind Blowing, though the lyrics don't kick in until the very end, so you won't even hear most of them. No wonder Raiden never fought this guy.
All this, and beaten by a goddamn mutt. It is said all dogs have their day.
For being my favorite character in the game, you'd think Blade Wolf would have a more epic confrontation. As is, it's still a great fight, and one that you can experience even without owning a copy, as he ends the demo. Certainly helped get me to buy it. But compared to other bosses, it doesn't have that "oh my god" factor throughout the entire battle, since the most amazing part of the fight is when the lyrics kick in. Also, like the Grad, you fight it as a basic enemy, where Blade Wolf himself comments on their presence.
A real dog has a far greater intellect.
Strangely, this happens in both DLC campaigns too, though Wolf's boss version is completely optional. When the leader of the Winds of Destruction is a breather compared to earlier fights, you've probably done something wrong. Despite having one of only two instances where proper positioning of your sword strike is mandatory, his gimmick is very easy to bypass or just straight up ignore. Not to mention his health drops like a rock for someone of his physique. I'm sure some people are surprised that he even has a second phase, which is slow enough to easily counter, even if you're struggling with using the parry mechanic. He also has a helicopter that's peppering you with basic fire and rockets, though it can also be used to hurt Sundowner, even if by a little, so his own backup is a problem to his success. There's also a section where you're flying a slider through the crumbling World Marshal to get back to Sundowner, which is annoying until you figure out what the R1 button does here, where it boils down to stick to one spot and shoot. I do have to admit, slicing up Sundowner is satisfying, and Sam's reaction is priceless.
Got yourself shaving?
Asshole.
By contrast, when you get hyped up just from the cutscene preceding the boss fight and it pays off, you've probably done something right. It's probably the only time where passing a knife looks epic. The fight constantly changes surroundings and just breaks apart as it goes on. Even Mistral's hair becomes messier as you progress. Like the previous bosses, it gets better once the lyrics kick in, as the scenario intensifies, culminating in cutting a tank of liquid nitrogen, freezing Mistral and giving you the freedom to cut her any way you like before smashing her into even more pieces. What a way to start a game. Except this wasn't even the start of the game.
Dead on!
The base fight is pretty awesome and surprisingly and welcomingly open-ended, especially the Sam version. But you know why it's here. Actually, I prefer the second time it kicks in, where you jump on missile after missile and then proceed to slice off the other arm. And it doesn't end there! Getting thrown onto a tall building, running down it while missiles and lasers come at you everywhere like a Michael Bay wet dream, culminating in Raiden slicing the entire UG in two. If I faced enough bosses to qualify making a top first bosses list, this would be number one without question. This is how you start a game. And it only gets better from here. How do you top throwing a Metal Gear? By suplexing an even larger Metal Gear after slicing off the front legs, ripping its arm off, and proceeding to clash blades with the damn thing before slicing the entire front part with said blade arm. What else needs to be said? A good action game can't go without a good rival character to serve as the final exam boss and provide closure on their rivalry. And Jetstream Sam is one of the best and most likable characters in the game, bar none. So for him to have one of the best fights in the game should really be no surprise. Being the entirety of R06, this is the one-on-one confrontation where all of your blocking, parrying, and swordplay are put to the test. You even knock his sword out of his hands and he proceeds to fight you barehanded. I just wish you could have put your sword away and fought him with your fists to make it fair. Also, it sucks knowing that you killed Sam. If you don't find Armstrong relatable, you'll find him hilarious.
Don't fuck with this, Senator!
And if you don't find him hilarious, you'll at least find him a good challenge. You fight him with your basic weaponry, you fight him fist to fist, which ends in rapid-fire fisticuffs that would make the Joestars proud.
Why won't you die, nanomachine son?
And you use Sam's Murasama Blade to fight the only boss with 200% health. You slice Excelsus chunks, lose your sword and thus the great lyrics which you can easily get back, use blade mode to block his fists, push the sword through his spinal column, arm lock with him, headbutt him, and proceed to expose and perform a Zandatsu on his heart. In many ways, this is just as complete a boss as Xemnas and Yami, and serves as the perfect endpoint for the entire game.
Get on!
Wow, what a boss! After one of the most memorable cutscenes in the game, not only for Raiden's acceptance of his inner psychopath, but for Monsoon's handy ramblings about memes, you are thrust into one of the fastest and most intense fights in the game. If you're no good at the game, he serves as the perfect wake-up call. He has all sorts of harsh and difficult to avoid attacks, so parrying is your best friend, especially after he starts throwing armored carriers and helicopters at you to slice apart, where he makes use of that magnetic body and evades all of your attacks while delivering powerful strikes, especially on Revengeance, where even the Fox Blade and Infinite Wig B, the most broken items in the game, won't save you. But if you can't parry, you can use an EM grenade to stun him, which the vehicle throwing part provides along with some nano paste, in case you're low on those. He can drop your lock on and attack from the smoke, strike you from a distance, toss a wheel of junk at you, and closes off with using a pillar to kill you. Following the quick time events, it's undoubtedly satisfying to just hack away at his body, culminating in cutting his head off, effectively killing him for good. It's great thematically, it's great visually, it's loads of fun to play, it's challenging, the music is fantastic and very well integrated, the character is such a show stealer even with just a few minutes of screen time, and it's something I always look forward to whenever I replay this game. I'm Transformers Fanco 328, and I'm fucking invincible!
Our own fight. Will you fuel the desire when always struggling with the truth of the life that might have been? But no matter how jagged your path is, you'll always come back to the road when the dust of the battle settles. The war still rages with